So, after months of rumour and speculation, Black Ops 4 has finally been revealed, and as it turns out, the leaks were true. 2018's game is a near future, boots on the ground Call of Duty with a Battle Royale mode and no campaign. Hooray? The response so far has been pretty mixed, with some people embracing the changes and others worried that Treyarch have gone too far. This isn't particularly unusual, although I get the sense that the gaming press are being slightly more optimistic than the fans. Having said that, I don't think that many of them get what makes Call of Duty, and why a lot of what has been announced is reason for concern for longtime fans.
They said there's no wall running in this, there's no thrust jumps, they had a little bit of boost jumping in Black Ops 3.
Yeah, why did they take that stuff out?
I don't know specifically. Like, I just saw that beat from the information that they were sending out.
That's weird.
For me, the reveal was a bit disappointing. As a fan of the old school style of Call of Duty, the vast majority of what was announced doesn't really resonate with me. And just in case you're wondering, no, I didn't get flown out to play it early. I've just watched a bunch of videos on YouTube and read a few articles. So my impressions are based solely on secondhand information and what has been said officially. While I haven't been blown away with what's been shown so far, there are some interesting ideas. Call of Duty's take on Battle Royale, for example, which they're calling Blackout, is definitely one of them. There are of course plenty of other ideas that, on paper at least, don't really sound like the type of Call of Duty experience I know and love. My biggest concern is that despite Treyarch mixing up the formula more than its predecessors have, it's not doing anything particularly original or uniquely Call of Duty. Instead, it feels like an attempt to cash in on the success of other games. This desire to emulate the success of others is so obvious that Polygon actually wrote an article about it, and they went as far to say that it doesn't matter if you follow instead of lead if you execute well on your vision, implying that it's in Call of Duty's best interest at this point to copy other games, and that so long as Black Ops 4 is well executed, it could succeed in a saturated marketplace, despite being a generic-looking sci-fi shooter. I beg to differ.
Lawbreakers.
I'm sure that many talented people worked long and hard on the game's presentation, but to me the art direction still falls flat. It kind of looks like Black Ops 2 and 3 had a menage a trois with ghosts. It's not that it isn't well designed, we've just seen it all before. So Black Ops 4 is set between 2025 and 2065. This sits in between Black Ops 2 and 3, which probably explains why it looks so similar to those games. This time period means that the futuristic theme has been dialed back from the previous games. So no boost jumping, wall running, or robot dogs. Make no mistake though, fictional weapons and sci-fi tech will still play a major role in gameplay. Now Black Ops 4 sets itself apart from the previous games in the franchise in three key areas. Firstly, the campaign, or lack of one. This will be a first for a Call of Duty game, and it's been a big talking point so far. Secondly, the inclusion of a Battle Royale mode, another first. And thirdly, a move to a hero unit team-based style of gameplay. There are plenty of other smaller changes too, such as the non-Battle Royale multiplayer matches being 5 vs 5 only, and health no longer automatically regenerating. According to Dan Bunting, one of the studio heads at Treyarch, a traditional campaign was never on the cards, despite various rumours to the contrary. Many believe that Black Ops 4 may have changed dramatically at some point during development, a rumour which is further fueled by a mysterious deleted tweet from David Vonderhaar. Apparently zombies, the regular multiplayer, and Blackout were always going to be the focus. Call me pessimistic, but I call BS on that. Considering development of Black Ops 4 started in 2015 and the success of Battle Royale games didn't really hit until early 2017, it seems unlikely that Blackout had been planned from the start. Also, Black Ops 4's list of features reads like they were cherry-picked from the most successful shooters of the past 2 years. Borrowing ideas from other games isn't unusual, of course, nor should it be frowned upon. Games wouldn't evolve at the pace they do without building on the success of others. It's just that here, this list feels like it was designed by a committee rather than a forward-thinking game studio. I also struggle to believe that a studio that's been making Call of Duty titles for over a decade, and one that used to put out a new game every 2 years, would need 3 years to put together a title with only zombies in the multiplayer. You could argue that Blackout would require significant development time, but would it really? It sounds like a lot of Blackout's content is being recycled from previous games.
We're bringing to bear 10 years worth of Black Ops universe features. That's your favorite characters, your favorite weapons, and the most iconic parts of your favorite maps. And we're putting them all in one place a crazy collision of fun, and then we're going to let you navigate that world with land, sea, and air vehicles.
Call of Duty has never been afraid to borrow ideas from other games, but not as heavily as Black Ops 4 is. The hero unit style of gameplay, for example, appears to be heavily influenced by the success of Overwatch and Rainbow Six The Siege. Treyarch dabbled with this concept back in Black Ops 3 with the Specialists, but this time they have a much bigger focus and will play a central role in how the game is played. In the same way that Overwatch only allows one of each hero per match, Black Ops 4 will restrict players to only one specialist. Feedback on this approach from people who got to play the game at the reveal event was generally positive, but there was also concern that putting a large emphasis on team coordination wouldn't necessarily work with Call of Duty's casual fanbase. It's also one of many new additions that threaten to slow the game down significantly. Other changes that are likely to impact speed are manual healing and 5 vs 5 lobbies. Most people that have played the game said that the lack of auto healing wasn't an issue, but this could be a very different story when playing in a lobby of casuals who aren't communicating or working together, and it could potentially encourage people to play more conservatively. 5 vs 5 could also slow things down, as less players per match would translate into less action going on. This really will come down to map design though. If the maps haven't been created with the smaller player count in mind, then we could end up with another situation like Ghosts. The biggest question I have around speed is how Treyarch plan to preserve Call of Duty's signature fast and twitchy gameplay in a mode like Blackout. One of the main things I dislike about games like PUBG and Fortnite is the amount of time each match takes. It's also not uncommon to spend a large amount of each game without seeing much action. Sure, things get more interesting the longer you survive, but it doesn't deliver the same instant thrills or moment-to-moment action that you get from a typical team deathmatch in Call of Duty. This is obviously very subjective, but that being said, Team Deathmatch has historically been the most popular mode in Call of Duty, and I'm unconvinced that the majority of Team Deathmatch fans will enjoy the slower pace of Battle Royale. So let's talk about the presentation. I've already mentioned that it looks very similar to Treyarch's previous games, and I guess this could be seen as playing it safe, seeing as Black Ops 3 was generally well received. But it could also be a big misstep. One of the biggest complaints of Infinite Warfare was the futuristic setting. For this reason, I think keeping the near future theme is a big gamble, and for me it's easily the biggest turnoff. Having said that, it does sound as though Blackout might not be straight up sci-fi because it includes characters, weapons and locations from the entire Black Ops franchise. My gut feeling is that a modern day setting would have resonated better with the mainstream. Call of Duty hasn't had a game set in the present day since Modern Warfare 3, and I think enough time has passed that it would feel like a positive sea change. Yeah, okay, so Modern Warfare 3 had some sci-fi elements, but not to the extent of the games that would follow. Again, this is very subjective, but I know I'm not alone when it comes to the desire to have real weapons and settings. Blackout might end up providing this, but based on what has been shown, I'm not on board with the near future setting. Blackout really holds the key to Black Ops 4's success if you ask me. If it can deliver the same Call of Duty experience in a map 1500 times the size of Nuketown with a huge number of players, then they might be able to keep everybody happy. People who like the smaller modes and the futuristic theme will be covered by the 5v5 multiplayer, and people who want the nostalgia of past games with real weapons will have Blackout. It's unclear if hero characters will be a part of Blackout or if there'll be teams or not, but based on what we've seen, it kind of looks a bit like Call of Duty Online. With a mixture of content from all the previous Black Ops games, this presumably means a mixture of both real and fictional weaponry. It's also unclear how big a part score streaks will play in this experience. My guess is that this might be some of the land, sea and air vehicles mentioned in the reveal, but I feel like I'm starting to go too far down the speculation path at this point. I'm not too disappointed about the lack of campaign, but it could have a big impact on sales. I know a lot of people who buy Call of Duty for the multiplayer, but still play through the campaign first. It's kind of an entree to the main course, and it provides the necessary context for the multiplayer. I know that both Overwatch and The Siege don't have a typical campaign, but Call of Duty's campaigns are an institution. Titanfall tried to launch without a campaign, and that was one of the biggest complaints with the original game. While that was some time ago, I don't think that Call of Duty will be able to avoid the same criticism, and I think the backlash at launch will be bigger than Treyarch or Activision have anticipated. I'm not going to talk about the zombies too much. It's one of the modes I rarely touch unless I have some friends round and we've had a few beers. It looks like this mode will be bigger than in the previous games, and the feedback from people who are into this mode seems to be mostly positive so far. Maybe because there's no campaign, Treyarch are hoping that the single-player fans will be convinced to migrate over to zombies, and that might act as a gateway to the multiplayer. Although, somehow I doubt this has been considered. At this stage, I'm of two minds about Black Ops 4. On one hand, I'm not very impressed with what we've seen so far. I'm also worried that Treyarch and Activision are just throwing a bunch of ideas up on the wall to see what sticks. It doesn't look like a confident game that knows what it wants to be. It looks like Activision are unsure of what direction to take the franchise and are just chasing the money. On the other hand, Blackout has a lot of potential. Despite the fact that I've yet to play a Battle Royale game that doesn't put me to sleep, I think this could be incredible if, dare I say it, they execute it well. 10 years ago, Call of Duty was the game every shooter wanted to be. The problem is that Call of Duty played it safe for so long and let other games innovate in the FPS space. Now it's Call of Duty that's frantically copying everyone else, hoping to cash in on what's hot. Black Ops 4 might be the biggest departure yet from the traditional Call of Duty formula, but it's still not innovating. It looks like whoever is making the decisions on game direction doesn't understand what makes Call of Duty, and 2018's game is just a hodgepodge of ideas from other successful titles. It is good to see that Activision has finally allowed their development teams to take a few more risks, even if they're extremely calculated ones, and I do honestly hope that it does succeed, but it's got a long way to go before I'm convinced that it's worth my time. But let me know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments section below, and if you're new to my videos, subscribe to keep up with all my content. If you enjoyed this video, why not drop me a like? But otherwise, thanks for watching.